The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question to the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is back in session. It is August 18th, 2026, and before we get into the situation in Ukraine, I want to mention that this will be my final upload of the summertime period. Due to real-life matters, which kind of revolves around academics and stuff, I will only be able to upload one video per week. And it will be like that until December of 2026, in which I will upload around maybe 2 to 3 videos per week during that 1 month period when I'm not in university. But otherwise, though, the summer period is over pretty much by now. And yeah, let's not waste any time and get into the frontline updates. So, the OREKHOV direction. The Russians, after clashing with the armed forces of Ukraine, have reportedly established a complete control over the lengthy village of Malotokmachka. Now, this particular capture here is subject to change due to uncertainties on the ground, but what we do know for certain is that the Russians are contesting right now for the city of OREKHOV, and as far as I know, they control around this much of the town, or city that is. Also, Sentinel imagery provided by Zoka channel on Telegram suggests that the Russians are also pushing into the adjacent village of Preobrazhenka and have contested, if not taken control over, most of this village here. And should the Russians be able to take it, OREKHOV is pretty much cooked, and the Ukrainians that are still in OREKHOV are pretty much doomed. So as far as I know, Russians might be around in this area, but again, we don't have enough confirmation to confirm these details. But as far as I do know, the group of forces Dnieper are not only advancing in OREKHOV, but the armed forces of Ukraine are having major problems supplying the town due to the fact that Vostok, which has been struggling throughout all of 2026, reportedly captured the village of Novosolochny, which is adjacent to Lyubitsky, which is a strategic village on the road from Novokhalivka all the way to OREKHOV, which in turn goes to Pokrovsky in Dnipropetrovsk region and the provincial capital of Zaporizhia. Now, moving towards the Goule Pulle direction, which also covers parts of Dnipropetrovsk region, a guy on Telegram was able to debunk a bunch of Ukrainian captures, especially in Berezove, and as far as I know, this area here, along with Verbove, Stepove, Vishnive, are still either gray zoned or under Russian control. But at this moment in time, we don't have enough details to support these claims. As far as I do know, the armed forces of Ukraine do have control over these villages here, which is just south of the Volcha River. But all of these, however, we don't know their fates at this time. The Ukrainian counteroffensive towards Komar has reportedly been halted, though it remains to be seen if they will continue to push. However, according to my secondary connections on Telegram, they have informed me that the armed forces of Ukraine are redeploying a bunch of guys from southwestern Donetsk direction towards the northern Donbas direction, which includes the cities of Slavyansk, Kromatorsk, and then going a little further to the south, the city of Dorapila, which is a key gateway to the rest of northern Donetsk, and especially the fortress belt here that the Ukrainians are protecting with every single man that they got. In the Mazova direction, which is in Dnipropetrovsk, the Russians have reportedly taking these empty fields out here, which is adjacent to the strategic town of Mazova. Should the Russians be able to cut off this road here, Novopavlovka will quickly collapse for the armed forces of Ukraine, which in turn will lead to its quick capture by the Russian forces from the northern direction. And as far as I know, Group of Forces Center does want to take the town of Mazova, which in turn would provide them a pathway to Proziana and, of course, the strategic town of Pokrovsky, which is a key logistics hub when supplying Ukrainian soldiers against the Vostok group in Zaporizhia and in Dnipropetrovsk regions. Now, moving to Dorapila itself, the Russians have reportedly captured the southern part of the city and are also advancing quite quickly within the main part of Dorapila itself. We don't have any word yet on the fate of the eastern half of Dorapila, but what we do know is that it is very likely that Hanivka or Gonovka is under Russian control. And in addition, the Russians are trying to push further north, which is why I put this in a gray zone, towards the town of Bilo-Zerske, which is a direct gateway to Novodonetsky and, of course, the strategic town of Alexandrovka, which Simon Ostrovsky of Vice News visited during his Russian Roulette series in 2014. But overall, not too much going on here, though we now have geolocations that do, in fact, confirm the capture of Krasno-Podila, Chernigovka, Bodiansky, Svitle, and Shevchenko. Now, moving towards this part of the front line, there are things that I know that I cannot 100% verify at this time, but as far as I'm concerned, the Russians are trying to retake the village of Zolatoy Kadz, which they captured briefly in August 2025 during that surprise offensive towards Dorapila, which kind of failed, that is. And as far as I'm concerned, the offensive is so far successful, and the Russian Ministry of Defense has claimed control over this village in the middle of this road here going to Kromatorsk, known as Andriivka. This would also mean that Novoandriivka right here would be contested, but again, we don't have any further details to confirm these claims, but I am certain that the Russians are definitely fighting for them now, which was why I decided to put these two in a gray zone. So, overall, though, we can definitely expect Zolatoy Kadz to probably fall to the Russians in September, if not the final phase of August 2026. And then after that, we can definitely expect the push of the Group of Forces Center either towards Alexandriivka, which borders both the Dnipropetrovsk and Kharkiv regions, and maybe they could even push towards north, towards the city of Kromatorsk, flanking Driskovka, like without having to enter the area, that is. Not much going on here in the Sylviansk-Kramatorsk direction in the southern flank, but around here, apparently, Persho-Marivka is now reportedly under Russian control, which puts the Russian forces, Group of Forces Yug, that is, 4 to 5 square kilometers away from the city of Kromatorsk, which is the administration seat of the Ukrainians in Donetsk region. I'm not expecting them to push into Kromatorsk too soon. If anything, I think what the Russians are going to focus on is try to take basically as much as they can, I guess, like, within, like, 4 to 5 square kilometers from both cities. We can definitely expect Vasilivska, Pustosh, along with Zapovidne, to be under Russian control sometime during September. And there's even a report, spread by the RUMOD, that is, that the key village of OREKHOV is under Russian control as well now. And should this be true, then this would mark the final settlement in this direction for Group Yug before you enter the city of Slavyansk, which in turn also means Kromatorsk would also be wide open too, because you also have a lot of empty fields here, but I honestly don't know if the Russians are going to bother pushing here because of the tough defense that the Ukrainians are expected to put up in both places. Not much going on in Mykolaiv, so we can skip that, though I'm definitely certain that the Russians are fighting hard for it. Liman is looking very good for the armed forces of Ukraine, though we haven't had a lot of news coming out of here, though it is expected that the Ukrainians are going to recapture all of this because Zapad here sucks. No news from the Borova direction, so we can skip that too. Little to no news from the Kupiansk direction, so we can skip that. And also little to no news from the northeastern Kharkiv direction. And lastly, before I sign off, the Russians are continuing their advances on the E-105 road, and as far as I know, they are trying to capture the strategic village or small town of Hoptivka, which would put them within range of some of the suburbs in Kharkiv region, like actually within reach. So if the Russians do push towards the city of Kharkiv or Kharkov, I think they will try to push maybe to Berezruki here, and then they'll try to stop right before they try taking Ruska Luzova. But if they do try to push any further, then it is very likely that, I don't know, maybe the Ukrainians are going to grind them down to the point where they might just retreat, or I don't know. But I think what will happen here is that the North Group is going to try to advance as far as they can towards the city of Kharkiv, to the point where they'll be able to treat it the same way right now as they are doing with Sumy, in which they get close enough, but not super close, but they would be able to shell and drone the city to death, which in turn will cause many people living in these big cities to evacuate, thus making it easier for the Russians to go into Kharkov, and of course, Sumy. And that's going to do it for today's video. So I'll see you guys next week, right after the start of my university semester, that is. And I hope every single one of you takes good care of yourselves and stay safe out there. So have a good night, everyone, and peace out. Bye-bye.